A British mum jailed in Iran on allegations of spying is at the center of a diplomatic spat that has seen her used as a political pawn. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was detained in the Islamic Republic last year, with some claiming she is just being used by the country's government as leverage over the UK. Here's the latest. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, right, with her husband Richard and daughter Gabriella, who is Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is a British-Iranian mum, a project manager with the Thomson Reuters Foundation, the charitable arm of the news agency, and a former BBC employee. She was arrested in Tehran on April 3, 2016, and accused of plotting to topple the regime. Nazanin was stopped from returning to Britain after visiting family with her daughter Gabriella, now 3, and thrown into prison, where she spent months in solitary confinement. Her family says Iran's Revolutionary Guard tried to get her to confess on camera that she trained and recruited spies, a charge she denied. The mum was visiting family in Iran with daughter Gab. Why is the Brit mum in jail? Nazanin was convicted of plotting the soft toppling of the Iranian government and sentenced to 5 years behind bars. She was set to become eligible for early release in late 2017 or early 2018, but was hauled back to court and confronted with 2 new charges that could see 16 years added to her sentence. She was accused of joining and receiving money from organizations working to overthrow the Islamic Republic. Iran says Nazanin's former employer, the BBC, is trying to topple the Islamic theocracy. She is also accused of protesting outside the Iranian embassy in London. The 38-year-old now faces the possibility of her time behind bars being doubled, after Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson told authorities she was teaching journalism. Now fears are growing for her mental well-being, as reports emerge Nazanin is suicidal as she awaits sentencing. The mum is just one of several dual nationals held in Iran on espionage charges, likely to be used as bargaining chips in future negotiations with the West. The UN panel of experts recently described the practice as part of an emerging pattern since the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. On November 24, Nazanin's husband said she will appear in court in December on charges of creating propaganda against the state in a new case that could double her 5-year sentence. The latest charges are said to have been raised after the Foreign Secretary's teaching journalism gaffe. Johnson's comments were viewed by the Iranian judiciary as proof of her guilt, reports The Times. Nazanin had been warned about the new case in a court session on November 4, but the family hoped that the charges would be dropped. A deputy prosecutor in Evin prison in Tehran had since informed her that the trial would go ahead. Her husband, Richard Ratcliffe, told The Times. The new case dashes hopes she would be granted early release after serving 14 months of her initial 5-year sentence. Her husband said she was told that she is going to be taken to court on December 10. We were hoping the case would disappear. She is angry and bewildered about what is going on. She said she thought she was going to be able to come home for Christmas. In the past few months she has been struggling with a scare after painful lumps were found in her breasts, though yesterday her husband said that doctors had ruled out cancer. Richard Ratcliffe has been campaigning for his wife's release for more than a year. What has Boris Johnson said? In November 2017, Boris Johnson vowed to phone his Iranian counterpart over fears that he made comments which could lead to Nazanin's sentence being doubled. The Foreign Secretary said the British Iranian was teaching journalism during her visit to the country before she was arrested, but her family insists she was visiting family. Her defense has been that she was merely visiting relatives on holiday with her then 18-month-old daughter. Iran's judiciary claims Boris Johnson's confession has voided the UK government's case. Boris has since apologized for his remarks. He said, "It was my mistake. I should have been clearer and I apologize for the distress and anguish caused to Mrs. Zaghari Ratcliffe and her family. I have apologized not just for the mistake but the way it was taken and any extra suffering and anguish my words have caused." He told MPs the UK government had no doubt she was on holiday when she was arrested. He said he did not believe his comments had had any impact on the judicial process in Iran. Mr. Johnson has traveled to the Islamic Republic of Iran this weekend and has held talks with his Iranian counterpart to call for the release of the mother phone. Following frank talks between the Iranians and Mr. Johnson, Ms. Nazanin Zaghari's court case was postponed and she was not summoned to a trial as had been expected. Boris said the trip to Iran was successful and he hopes that Nazanin could be released. Michael Gove made another gaffe by saying he didn't know why Mrs. Radcliffe was in Iran. What has Michael Gove said? The Environment Secretary Michael Gove was criticized for failing to explicitly say Nazanin was on holiday in Iran. Appearing on The Andrew Marr Show on the 12th of November 2017, he was asked what she had been doing in the country. Mr. Gove replied, "I don't know," adding, "There was no reason Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe should be in prison in Iran so far as any of us know." He also said he would take her husband's assurance that she was on holiday. Defending Boris Johnson, Mr. Gove added, "We make a big mistake if we think the right thing to do is to blame politicians in a democracy who are trying to do the right thing for the plight of a woman who is being imprisoned by a regime that is a serial abuser of human rights. Who is in the dock here? Iran. It should be the actions of their judiciary and the Revolutionary Guards." What happened to Nazanin's husband and daughter? Nazanin's husband Richard Ratcliffe, an accountant who is in North London, was not with her when she was arrested, and has been campaigning for her release ever since. He has called on the government to do more to secure his wife's freedom and set up a petition last year demanding action that has now received nearly 1 million signatures. Richard blasted the latest charges by Iran, dismissing them as games that make the country look foolish and bring its legal system into disrepute. He said Boris had done a good thing in clarifying his comments, and asked him to try to visit his wife in Iran. He also begged Boris to take him to Iran so he could see his family. The regime in Tehran has refused to issue the campaigning accountant with a visa. The couple's daughter Gabriella is being cared for in Tehran by her grandparents after the tot's passport was initially confiscated. Mexican YouTube star shot dead after taunting drug lord Al Mencho. Man with world's second largest penis accuses title holder of cheating. Woman stabbed at Aldia's staff. Bravely detained suspected knifeman. Woman left fighting for life after heat rash. Got infected with flesh-eating bug. Young widow 26 barred from daughter's nativity as she had baby son with her mum's furious school. Tells daughter, 11, outrageous lie that Santa isn't real. What's the latest? A ray of hope emerged before Christmas after Nazanin was told she was eligible for early release. Nazanin's lawyer told the 39-year-old that her case was marked on the Iranian judiciary database as eligible for early release. The news comes days after husband Richard said he hoped his wife and daughter can return home before Christmas. Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, sentenced to 5 years in jail in Iran. We pay for your stories. Do you have a story for the Sun Online News team? Email us at tips@thesun.co.uk or call 0207-782-4368. We pay for videos too. Click here to upload yours.